So when that moment happened, when he said that to Nene, I was like, oh, the shade, but also it's kind of true. Hey guys, it's Kristen, and today we are talking about episode 7 of High School Musical, the musical, the series. It is Thanksgiving themed. Consider subscribing if you like my videos, and drop it in the comments and let me know your thoughts on this episode. I have to say, I really enjoyed this episode. I think it might be one of my favorites of the season. I really like that we got to dive into each character a little deeper than we have already. Let's start off with Ashlyn, because in this episode she ends up having an after Thanksgiving dinner party at her house. She gets to have a couple of nice moments with Big Red, which I enjoy because I think these characters we've really seen more be kind of like the supporter for some of the more main characters. Ashlyn's always supporting her cousin EJ, Big Red is always supporting Ricky, and it was nice to see the two of them have their own moments. And I started getting these vibes that maybe Ashlyn likes Big Red, the two of them had a nice little friendship dynamic together that I think could definitely turn into something more. And I really loved that Big Red gives a nice shout out to Ashlyn's songwriting and says that it's very Sarah Bareilles-esque, which I think was really, first of all, it's a great compliment because Sarah Bareilles is incredibly talented, but it also is just like the most theater kid thing ever. I just feel like Sarah Bareilles is a staple, especially in like a theater kid's repertoire of just like artists that you love. Me and my friends listen to her, and you know, we were theater kids, we did show choir, and to me that just seems like a yes, of course they would love Sarah Bareilles. So I really enjoyed that reference and it just hit home for me. Big Red also had this great line where he was like, oh, the only thing I would throw at you, Ashlyn, is a big spotlight because I like the way you sing, and I'm just like, that is so cute, like, that's so sweet! Next up, I want to get into Ricky. I think that he had a lot going on in this episode. When it comes to his mom, I think that things are definitely rocky for them still. She's the one that kind of left their family, so I could understand why, you know, maybe he feels a bit pushed aside or left behind. And then when he calls his mom to say Happy Thanksgiving, her new boyfriend, Todd, answers the phone. And, you know, he doesn't know anything about Todd. He has not heard about him. And the first thing Todd says is like, oh yeah, I've heard all about you, Ricky. And from that conversation, there were sort of two things going through my head. The first is, who is this Todd? Like, how long have they been together? Why hasn't she mentioned him before? And my second thought is like, is this what broke up their relationship? Like, was Ricky's mom cheating with this guy Todd? Like, it just seems very quick. So I'm very suspicious. And something I've talked about before is that I really enjoy the way that the character of Ricky has been portrayed so far, and just like the depth that goes along with, you know, the family drama that we've seen so far in his character. And so, you know, I wasn't even thinking of this, but when Nene tries to talk to Ricky about like what he's going through, he comes back at her with some major shade that honestly I think is kind of warranted. He says basically like, my mom moved out 2 weeks ago and she has a new boyfriend. Sound familiar? There's definitely a really interesting parallel and kind of pain in these situations. Ricky, we've seen from the very beginning of this show, is someone that has a hard time expressing his emotions, especially when it comes to love, and he has a very hard time with change. So when Nene first told him that she loved him, he kind of freaked out. He wanted to go on a break, and she took that as breaking up. So, you know, into the summer, she got a new boyfriend. And when she came back, he was floored. And now he's joined this musical to try to get her back. But I think that we're kind of seeing him go on this journey where, you know, at first he was in the musical to get Nene back, and now he's more in the musical because it's something that is fun. It's bringing him together with these other people that maybe he wouldn't have been friends with before, like Gina. And I think it's opening up a whole new kind of world to him to know that he can sing and he can do these things and, you know, bringing him this kind of confidence. This confidence that I think he did lose a bit of when he lost Nene. And now to see that his mom has done something very similar, I think just really hurts. So when that moment happened, when he said that to Nene, I was like, oh, the shade, but also it's kind of true. That really shook me. Speaking of Nene, I think in the last episode or so, we've been seeing a little bit of a jealousy from Nene when it comes to Ricky and Gina's friendship. Just in general, Nene has been a person that is very talented, but is also very wrapped up in like boy drama, and I think she gets some good advice from Ashlyn in this episode to like stop writing songs about boys and like write a song for herself and focus more on herself. And I agree with that, definitely. And then she starts to look into this musical theater conservatory, which I think would be a really interesting step for her. That really shows her, you know, focusing more on herself and her dreams and not letting all this boy drama get in the way. And I gotta say, I think that is a good message. I don't know if we're gonna really see her go to this conservatory just because, like, she's one of the main characters in the show, so, like, how can she leave the school? But I'd be curious to see what she ends up doing. whatever it is, I hope that she does continue to put herself first and not get caught up in drama. We also see what EJ's been up to since this whole blowout with Nene, and I don't think it's necessarily working for him. He decides that he wants to just be completely honest all the time. You know, he feels a lot better revealing the truths of, you know, all the bad things or lies and stuff that he's told in the past. And at first it's like, okay, you know, maybe that's a good idea, get things out in the open. We even get to see him reconcile things with the girl, Emily, that he poisoned essentially with a bad deviled egg during their camp musical, and she's like fine with it and doesn't care anymore. So in that aspect, we sort of get a resolution to that drama, but at the same time, EJ doesn't really have a main role. He's more in the background, just like dropping all these truth bombs, and at the very end, we get to see that it doesn't really work out in his favor. It looks like people on social media want to cancel him. He's lost like over 600 followers or something. And I think that all these truths that he's revealing are going to come back to bite him. Maybe it's one of those things that instead of revealing all the bad things you've done in your life, you could just promise not to do any more bad things and move on. I also get to see the teachers in the show have a little moment for the holidays. It turns out they're both on their own, and they come and work on some of their projects at school, and they end up helping each other and having a nice little movie night, which again makes you wonder, like, now does that mean Miss Jen has two potential love interests, or is this just one of the like little white flag moments between two rivals, but like they're still rivals? I'm not really sure yet. And then when it comes to Gina, I think we got to learn a lot about her in this episode, which I enjoyed, and I think the more we get through this season, the more I like her. I think she's a character that at first you're like, wow, she's really talented, and then you're like, oh no, does she have a mean agenda? And then you're like, actually, I think she's a little bit more misunderstood, and it's just trying to like make it in the world. I think she and Ricky definitely have a lot of cute moments in this episode. I like that they can rely on each other and talk to each other, and that they have similar kind of issues going on in their family lives. She knits a cute little hat for Ricky that just looks ridiculous, but you know, it's the thought that counts. That was really sweet. And then we get to learn about her family life. So it's her and her mom who works for FEMA. So whenever there's like a big disaster, her mom has to move the both of them to that location so they can help out. She's moved like so many times in the last few years that it's really hard for her to make friends. And so this looks like this is one of the few times that she's really formed a bond and created friendships, and she is so happy to be part of this High School Musical production. And this episode, actually, I really felt like the whole crew was becoming more of a family, way more than last episode. So when we find out that Gina actually is going to have to move, and she only has 10 days left at this school, I really was feeling for her. She talks about how she's never been invited to a sleepover before. This was going to be her first one at Ashlyn's house, and then her mom kind of just like ruined it all by dropping this huge news on her that they were going to be leaving soon. This also called to mind Gabriella's story because her family moved around a lot as well due to her mom's job. I'm hoping that they find a way to make things work, like maybe someone from the cast will open up their home to Gina and let her finish out the school year or something before she moves. I also have to mention, at Ashlyn's party, they're playing this amazing game that Carlos created when he was younger and brought to the party called High School Musical The Choosicle, which is just like this insanely huge board game, which I really want them to create one of those because I would 1,000% buy it. And it also just made me think, like, how fun would it be if, like, High School Musical The Choosicle was, like, an episode where, like, they did some kind of interactive choose-your-own-adventure type of episode. And then at the end of this episode, there is a big power outage that looks like it's going to affect the next episode. And then it looks like they're trying to get Courtney to sing in the musical, and that makes me wonder, do they want her to take over the role of Taylor now that it looks like Gina might have to move? That is just my sneaking suspicions, although I'm sure we will find out more in the next episode. When it comes down to it, I really liked the journeys that we got to follow this episode with Ricky and Gina especially. I also specifically think that I would love to see in the future some type of episode where Ricky really sits down with his parents, especially his mom, and just like blurts out how he feels and like tells them what the truth is of like what's going on in his head, because I really don't think that we've gotten to see him kind of have that big moment yet. I also really love that whole High School Musical The Choosicle idea, and I would love a board game to be made or just like some kind of cool interactive episode to come about on Disney Plus, because I think that would be epic. Thank you guys so much for watching, and you can see more of my High School Musical, the musical, the series reviews right over here. I will catch y'all in my next video. See ya.